my initial education was like state school primary. And then I went to a private secondary school on a scholarship, on a sports scholarship. That's the thing. It's easy. That's why a lot of people do it, you know? Like when you have the freedom and you are your own boss, or, you know, you're working together, whatever it may be, I think it's really a case of that environment is where you really have to double down and work even harder than ever.
AJ Morris, a pioneer of the natural bodybuilding industry, changing the way people view natural bodybuilding, whilst attracting more eyes to the natural side of bodybuilding.
You know, from the outside looking in, it might look like straightforward or fun, etc. But there are also things where the pressure is overwhelming, and you know, you might not have a good month, or you might have a bad week, or you might not be heading in the right direction. You question everything.
He has spent years dedicating his time to coaching his clients and focusing on offering a really high-value service. He offers a membership app where you get access to training videos, educational courses, and coaching.
It's not just a site. You know, I'm now managing a group of athletes, a team.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's really good.
Yeah,
Really good. I've been on the site. I think it's really good.
Thank you very much.
It's literally like it reminded me of the the Train by JP sort of platform.
Absolutely.
But it's the natural version.
Absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said, you know, at this point, you know, Jordan, Corin have been absolutely pivotal in terms of progressing myself as an athlete and as a coach. I learned an incredible amount from them, and I'm very, I'm always inspired. I mean, how can you not be inspired by them?
Yeah.
Incredible people, and you know, being a part of Train by JP, obviously for the time that I was with them, you know, that kind of, I always knew that I was going to have to do something for the natural scene. Cool. That's part of the buy-in of being an athlete, really. When the contract's written up, and I don't mind sharing the fact that, you know, these people are on contracts, they get a payment each month alongside the fact that they have the videographer content. So they are actually probably some of the first like natural athletes to get sponsored in a truly like a whole natural platform, rather than being like, you know, it's just sponsored. Okay, won a couple of British titles and then went back into his shell and didn't really come out again. So yeah, I'd rather be there, be present, and I enjoy that as well. I enjoy being a part of the game. Any less than 12 weeks out,
Come back 11 weeks out.
Oh yeah, you can, honestly.
Hey, Sam, keep this down. Let's go. Rock the fucking. Here you go. Then I'm going to come. Let's go. I'm going to come here. Come on. Let's go. Easy work. Here we go. Right, make this one lighter. Super hard brace. Get the fuck up. Show me now. Show me some fucking minerals. Perfect fucking set. Yeah. That's still you.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Clwb podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Alex Knott and a very, very special guest, Mr. AJ Morris. So AJ, firstly, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys.
Historic podcast for you, I think, because I believe it's your first in-person podcast.
It is indeed. Yeah, it is indeed. I mean, you guys got such a cool setup here. So
yeah.
I can see you put so much time and dedication into providing this podcast. So looking forward to getting stuck in.
I me too. And I just want to go over your background first. For any of you who don't know AJ, if you're a natural bodybuilder and you don't know AJ, then you're doing something wrong, and you should definitely get to know him. AJ is an established competitor himself and a very successful online coach. Recently had a tremendous competitive season, and is very well established in the coaching area and also the competitive area. And you recently have a site now, Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide.
Indeed, yes, indeed. Yeah.
So that's quite a historic thing. I believe that's a natural. We'll get onto this later, but it's quite a natural platform for learning.
100%. It's kind of it's standing alone, I guess, in the sense that it's probably one of the first formed membership sites directly towards natural bodybuilding. But yeah, like you said, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But it's definitely something that I treat as my little baby at the moment, because I've been in this industry for almost a decade now. But that is still something that's very much like at its infancy.
Yeah, sure. It's only recently established as well within the last year.
June last year.
Yeah, so that's very historic. But I know this is quite a standard question for everyone, but it's obviously quite important to establish AJ's sort of qualification. So how did you get into bodybuilding? What was the origin of natural bodybuilding for you?
Sure. So like I said at the start, we can take this short form or we can take it long form. So I'll take you guys into sort of more the longer form version. So when I was very, very young, my first sort of like competitive sport was football. I'm sure it's probably like very similar for a lot of people. But the area in which I lived was like a cul-de-sac. So it's like houses surrounding each other, small nick with a hill on it as well, with a small corner at the bottom. And when we were 4, 5, 6 years old, we used to just get outside, either play football or we'd race down this hill, sitting on skateboards, sitting on like what we used to call baby bugs, which are like the little trikes.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I was just so competitive, so competitive from the get go. Like if I didn't win racing down the hill, I'd be in a bad mood, 100%. So I'd find ways to be faster, to be better, to buy better skateboards with better bearings, so I could beat my friends basically.
So get the nuances.
Yeah, the little things. And I was like that from sort of day one. And then that sort of football there was a decision point when I was about 8 years old, and my father, my dad was very much into motorsports. Every Sunday we'd typically watch like F1 and any form of motorsport. So I'd always had that kind of whirring away in the background, and obviously racing down this hill as well, kind of like jigged that a little bit. And I got my first sort of try in go-karts when I was 7 years old. And at 8 years old, there was this decision, right? Do I race every other weekend in go-karts? At that time, it was like rental karts, but a championship. Or do I continue to play football? So I really couldn't do both. So I went down the route of racing karts because it was something I was more passionate about.
That's really cool, by the way. That's a cool sport, I think.
You
could have gone down F1 if you wanted to.
See, this is the thing, you know, like that from day one of racing karts, that was it for me. Like I wanted to be... You know,
you wanted to go that route.
I wanted to be in motorsport 100%. That was my identity. That was me as a person. Everyone at school, secondary school, even back end of primary, probably a little bit as well, just due to the clothes that I wore to school and things like that. Probably just they identified me as the guy that liked motorsport. So then I progressed to a level where I was, you know, racing most weekends, and I placed top 5 in British Championships. I did well at a world level as well in motorsport. But this was all within karts. Now within karts, budget is everything.
It's like pay to play sort of sport, right? You've got to have money first.
A lot of it is. Yeah, a lot of it is. I had sponsors. I had some sponsors, but the sponsors at the time were like people who already had sons or daughters in the sport, and then would have a little bit of spare money to put towards my tyres or my fuel or my race entry fee or something like that. And this was also at the time, can't quite remember the dates, so I won't quote them, but it was also the time where we went kind of through that first bit of recession.
Oh, like 2009, 2008 sort of
Perfect.
period.
Yeah, that's it. And my dad at the time was running a pretty successful food service recruitment business. And that really took a massive hit at that time. So funds for motorsport started to dwindle a little bit. Opportunities started to come away, and you know, when I'd normally be out every other weekend, it was pushing back to maybe once a month. And there were other kids that were going out every weekend, and I'd turn up at race weekends and be not quite where they were because I just wasn't in the kart as much. I tried as hard as I could. So like my end of that scale was like, again, it was the same thing as like racing down the hill in the cul-de-sac. Where can I be better? How can I improve that with things that I can control? So in the 3 weekends that I wasn't on the track, I was in the gym, or during the week I was in the gym, and I was trying to be the fittest kid that I could be, so that when it came to the final at the end of a weekend of racing on a Sunday, I was still fresh, no problems, whereas the other kids were a bit gassed out, a bit tired. So I definitely started to creep up, and my definite like specialty, if you ever asked my dad about racing, was like when it started to rain and it started to become a little bit treacherous on track. That was where I sort of like step ahead, because I was a bit fearless and reckless and willing to try lines that other people wouldn't. And equally, you have to be a little bit fitter when it's wet, because there's a lot more physical movement of the wheel, throwing it into corners. And you also have to move around your body weight with the cart. So you have to move with the actual chassis itself. And I was very, very in tune with that, even to the point where I said to my dad, like, I need to practice like more load on the steering. So he made me a steering wheel with a load of lead attached to it and got me to sit and just go until my hands couldn't really move it much more. So it's things like that that got me some great results, and I still am extremely passionate about motorsport. I follow it. I do a bit of sim racing at home now, and yeah, I absolutely have a huge passion for it. But it came to a point where, you know, the financial side of things just wouldn't allow me to progress much further. So that was then a point where I was already in the gym. So I'd made a lot of friends. I'd developed some relationships where people were sort of spotting me putting in effort. And that then led me down the route of thinking, right, okay, well, if I can't, you know, race, what am I going to do? I need something to compete in. I didn't really fancy the idea of powerlifting. I was already following some like bodybuilders online, like Matt Ogus and Alberto Nunes. And I was like, right, okay, let's bodybuild. Let's do some bodybuilding. Let's lift some more weights. So you just said,
right, there's I might as well just do that then. And you just dove straight into it.
Pretty much in the grand scheme of things. Like for me, the gap between racing karts, I finished racing karts in 2012. I did my first bodybuilding show in 2014.
Oh, so you dove into that as a sport. You thought, I'm going to be a competitive bodybuilder.
Straight out the gate, pretty much.
So you didn't just train for years on end and then thought, do you know what, actually, I want to step on stage. You just dive straight into it.
Pretty much. Like that was, for me, I think when I look back at like that whole process of like getting to where I am now, the thing that I realized is that just I need competition. I need something where I'm progressing, where I have analysis of, am I better? And then am I better than someone else to a degree? Well, see, bodybuilding is a little harder to do that sometimes because the definitive answer of whether you're better than someone else is not based upon a true result. It's based upon a formed decision and objection. But it's still something in which I feel like I can personally progress. And, you know, as we'll talk about a little bit probably later, like the whole business side of me I'm hugely passionate about that because it's still progression. It's still, am I doing better than last year? Am I diving for opportunities? Am I challenging myself mentally or physically? Yeah. And that's why I think now I've got the best blend of everything I've ever wanted in life, really. I've got challenge personally, I've got challenge physically, and that's what gets me up in the morning, gets me going. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I'd be doing.
I don't think there's much value in life if there's no challenge.
Honestly, yeah, I agree. I'd be very lost.
So what was the point then that you thought, I'm making the switch? Like what sort of clicked in your brain that you thought, I'm going to step on stage and compete?
So stepping on stage and competing, I think that was formed as a result of having a close network of friends in the gym that some of them were preparing for competitions, some of them were older than me. My only ever coach that's taken me through a bodybuilding prep ever, apart from myself, was my friend at the time called Nick Walsh. He was in the gym and competing in some Miami Pro competitions. And he was also a personal trainer at the studio that I started personal training in, semi-private studio, which I did for about 1.5 to 2 years. And he was there and I looked up to him, you know, he'd already done it. So he guided me through that process. And, you know, when I came to him and said, you know, the idea of competing, you know, he was all for it. It was like, you know, yeah, 100% me, you know, putting in. He'd seen me in the gym, dedicated, consistent. He'd seen me going for a phase in the off season, pushing up body weight, training super hard. And you know, he knew that I was going to be able to follow through with that process. So he kind of like already viewed me as someone that was capable of doing it, even though I was really young at the time, 18 years old. So, you know, that was probably the spark is for me seeing other people around me locally compete. It wasn't even at that time. I can't even remember how many like Instagram followers I had or how many people I followed, but it wasn't very much. Like, you know, I barely spent much time on social media at that time. In that point, I was still working in Sainsbury's as well. So I was just on tills or pushing trolleys.
See, all the greats come from supermarket backgrounds.
Yeah.
We've both worked in a supermarket.
We both come from retail, yeah.
And it's just, it makes you realise...
There's some character development for you, working retail for a bit.
It makes you realise what you want to do, and I think...
Or what you don't want to do, and why you should embrace challenge, because otherwise you may be stuck.
Big time.
Stuck
because there. You see people in retail that are quite happy, and you see them turn up every day.
They tolerate their lives.
And they tolerate, big time. They they see it as, okay, I'm just going to progress to maybe like manager of
section leader of the food and veg department,
something like that. And I was, all for it if that makes them happy. If that's what they've got to do. And I understand that people have maybe their own limitations in their life that stop them from wanting to do much more, take risk, because maybe they have families. And things like that.
You can't knock anyone for wanting to do that. But the main thing for me is that they impose far lower end goals because they believe that, they don't believe that big things are possible. So then going to manager in a retail store is a big step for them, and they, when you compress your thought of where you can progress to in your life, then you're not going to make huge steps. Little steps are big steps, whereas you want to take over natural bodybuilding not in a malicious way, the king of natural bodybuilding. But you're on your way. I mean, we can get into it, but it's interesting that.
Yeah, and I like the whole challenge aspect of that. I was thinking about what to call this episode, and I came up with the title, Passion for Progress. And I don't know if that's ever been said before, but if it hasn't, I'm coining it, and I'm using that as my term. But your passion for progress is something that I really like. And I tried to, we've spoke about Kaizen before, or is it Kaizen?
Continuous improvement.
Yeah, and that is something I'm looking for now in my life. And I think you can channel that through different ways. Yours is natural bodybuilding, ours is podcasting and business. And I want to know where that comes from. Where inside you does that mindset come from?
I think for me, again, this is something that it's hard to know, because it's something that I've always kind of had and possessed. I think it's something that, of course, over the course of time, it's become more prudent, more to the front, because I've seen and had more opportunity to make it happen. And then the more that it happens, the more that I want it. It's like a continuous craving for doing something better or improving myself in some shape or form. So, thinking back to maybe my childhood and where it was formed initially, I think probably a large part of it was being in a position where I felt like I wanted more for myself and my family at the time, and I'd seen more. So my initial education was like state school primary, and then I went to a private secondary school on a sports scholarship. And there was a lot of kids at my school that had a lot more than I did. I can't remember really how many times I went on holiday as a kid, and a lot of people were jet setting all over the place. And I had a very nice upbringing. Don't get me wrong. Like I obviously had a great education. I had a lovely home, and in motorsport I saw kids with massive motorhomes. Yeah. 4 different chassis, 2-3 different engines. The advantages that these people had through,
and the privilege as well.
Yeah, the privilege and the freedom, to do more. So I think that maybe sparked a little bit of a fire within me, and that wasn't like the sole pursuit was money. The sole pursuit for me was making sure that I had something that I enjoyed on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That was
the freedom to do what you want to do in your life.
That was
as like seeing these, because I went to uni in London, and I saw all the rich Asians running around and they didn't know what money was. They'd spend 2-3 grand at a table like it was nothing. Whereas for me, I'm like, if I had that in my bank account, I'll hold on to that. Like that's a lot of money. Yeah. 2-3 grand as a student, that's like a couple months of spending money. And they're just blowing it on a table.
Yeah.
It's just it just makes me realize these kids, they just had so much money, and I was like, right, I've got a graph now, because you've got to work harder. Maybe that's what it is. That you can't have what they have in the way that they've had it. You've got to work harder. So work harder.
Yeah, that's it. I think definitely growing up with a nice childhood and good education, and then seeing that there is more. It gives you that platform to think outside the box a little bit more. And I think a lot of people have come from, there's even been a lot of entrepreneurs that have come from very, very tough backgrounds, very tough childhoods, that have succeeded because of that passion to just basically get out of a position that they've maybe been in the past as a kid or a child or growing up. So I think some of that for me was that phase for sure. And then beyond that, it was just, I feel like when I got into specific jobs like 9-5s, I did a little bit of 9-5 in a call center as well after the Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
And I just remember again that like just dreaded feeling of getting up in the morning.
I think that's where we are now. We've come from our retail job, and now we're in an office style 9-to-5.
Yeah.
And we're just sat there, and I'm looking at Matthew like, this is the life.
We go into the office together, and I'm editing videos.
He's on Premiere Pro on the side.
Pro
I'm trading stocks and stuff, and we're like, we're grafting. Like I refuse to sit there and accept this life like everybody else in the office is doing. You know, gosh, my lunch break's over. Oh, I better get back to work.
Yeah. The thing is, though, because we're interacting with people like yourself, you know, high-level individuals that have freedom to do what they want. Like, if you look at your life now, I mean, I don't know your daily basis schedule, but I can imagine it's up early, work, food, whatnot, train, home, more work. And it's like, that to me sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want that feeling of being able to do what I want. Not what I want, sorry, but do what I like.
But isn't this period of time where we don't have it? This is what will make that much better. Now that we don't have it now, we know how much we value the opportunity to be able to do that. These kids, as I said, back to what I was saying about the kids I saw in London, the Asians and the Arabs, it was usually the foreign rich families, really big money, you know, millionaire families.
Sure.
They had no value of money. They'd throw $2,000 on a table like it was nothing because they didn't understand what that really meant in real terms.
Yes.
Whereas me now, if I spend $2,000 on something, I'm gonna do my due diligence. It better be something that's gonna bring me a return. I'm not throwing $2,000 on alcohol.
100%.
I'll try not to.
I was waiting for that call.
He's looking me in the eye there.
It's like, I feel like I've got this feeling now of like, I'm being choked by the 9-to-5. Like, do you ever have that? You're like, it's doing its best to drain you of entrepreneurialism and the feeling of getting out. And I just honestly, I'm just so desperate to get like into a position where I can do what I want.
It's almost like emotional, like overwhelming how bad I am.
It is. Honestly, I'll be open. I've sat down and cried doing my 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And I sent you a photo of me crying. And that was because I was just like overwhelmed by the feeling of just...
But I don't think some people get it. And, you know, maybe you can tell us then, because obviously we're trying to figure this out ourselves. But I think, I'm not saying we're close to breaking free. There's a lot of work we've got to do. Sure. But we're at that point now where we know that the next step for us is to do things on our own terms. So how do you break from where we are, that 9-to-5 grind, with a side hustle, to owning your own business, having life on your own terms? Like what happens in that period? How do you go from us to where you were when you broke free?
From pain to passion.
Pain to passion. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, first and foremost, I can totally relate to how you feel because I did the same. On the way to work, I can remember my parents dropping me off often and just, again, breaking down, you know, like not being, it wasn't me, you know, it wasn't me, 100%. It wasn't my identity. I knew that I had more. And that thing that you feel now that's your power. That's your power. The feeling of wanting more is your power. So when you get upset or you get down, you get frustrated, harness that, you know, actually harness that emotion. And then at the right point, put it into your passion, which is this business outside, side hustle, whatever it is. Take the any time that you have, because I think a lot of people when they work a 9-to-5, it's like I haven't got the time. Well, create it, have it. It's got to be somewhere. There has got to be time that you can put into it. Like you're here now, you're doing this.
And then tomorrow morning we'll be back in work. But we're here, aren't we?
Yeah.
6-hour drive, 5-hour drive away from where the office is.
Boom.
We made it happen, didn't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm all for that. But anyway, back to what you're saying.
Love it. Yeah, that's exactly what you got to be doing. Is harnessing that frustration and putting it into something good. You know, because a lot of people will just probably spend the rest of their lives being frustrated, complaining about their job, not really liking what they do because they feel like they've got some form of security. So obviously your main goal now and my main goal when I came out of my 9-to-5 was, or during it really, was like creating a little bit of security for myself. You know, making sure that I had at least some finances put away in a place where I could, you know, move forwards into a little bit of a risk, so to speak.
Yeah, that's where we're at now. Do we take that leap, that risk?
Yes.
But I don't have savings, so I don't have income to replace that. So the plan now, I think, is just to get that foundation, so that when we do take that leap, we have a couple of months to figure out how we're gonna sort of turn that into a, you know, financial financial thing.
Yeah. I think pressure is a privilege in that situation though. Like when you do take the leap, the pressure that you then feel is good.
Yeah.
Because it makes you work harder, it makes you get up earlier, it makes you organise.
Yeah, we're up at 5 then. I'm not going for a pint in the weekend and giving in to instant gratification. Like that won't be an option. It'll be, if we don't do this now, because now we have monthly income. We can just take our time. Just do this on a Friday, that on a Saturday. But
Speed and power.
Speed and power, yeah.
Yeah, I'm dying to do what I love. Like I love training.
Yeah.
You know, being in the gym yesterday in Ultraflex. You might feel this, but you definitely feel this. But I feel free. Do you have that sort of like freedom feeling? You feel like you belong there and you can be yourself there. Like it's like, I don't know if you were like this, but I'm like sort of playing a character when I go to my 9-5.
Of course.
Like because they think that I'm interested in.
They think you want to pursue a career in the civil service. Yeah.
And I do not care.
Yeah.
Like any less about that. And it's really bothering me that I'm not where I want to be. Yeah. And I accept that there is time and I will have to just bide my time and do it. But it hurts me deep down that I can't do what I want to do. Because
I can see that in your face. Like when he comes into the office and he's like, just not detached, like a different person. And then seeing you in Ultraflex. It's crazy how some people give up on their hopes and dreams, right? Just because of the security that you can easily get if you just take a 9-to-5. Like we can easily continue doing what we're doing now. Go for a drink with the boys on the weekend.
Yeah.
Easily. It's easy.
That's the thing. It's easy. That's why a lot of people do it, you know? Like when you have the freedom and you are your own boss or, you know, you're working together, whatever it may be, I think it's really a case of that environment is where you really have to double down and work even harder than ever. It, you know, from the outside looking in, it might look like straightforward or fun, etc. And don't get me wrong, a lot of it is fun, a lot of it is great, but there are also things where the pressure is overwhelming, and you know, you might not have a good month, or you might have a bad week, or you might not be heading in the right direction. You question everything.
Yeah, should I have left?
You're questioning everything, and you have no security. You know, and so I think it takes time and it takes a lot of confidence building, and you have to have thick skin as well, because in whatever industry you go into, you've got to be prepared for the fact that, you know, there's always going to be competition. Right now in your 9-5, you're probably in a position where you're not having a huge amount of comparison to another colleague or another job or whatever it is. But as soon as you get into an industry where there are others doing the same thing, you're always going to have that feeling of comparison, or am I doing enough? Am I progressing at the rate that I want to progress? You ask yourself what are these questions, which is good, because you should. You know, when clients come to me and they're coaching and they're like, you know, I'm afraid I'm not doing enough, or, you know, should I be doing this because X is doing that? I'm like, good for questioning yourself, because if you don't, then that's when you can fall behind. So there's definitely pros and cons for sure.
So did you ever feel maybe I shouldn't leave my job, maybe I should stay where I am and work on that on the side? And coming out the other end, did you ever feel like you should have just left earlier and jumped in sooner?
I definitely don't think I should have left sooner, because I think I left at the right time. So, like, to put it into context, I came out of my semi-private personal training job in 2014 and transitioned like full-time online. But by that point I had, I think it was like 20-25 online clients built up, and I knew that more inquiries were coming in. And by that point I was very, very confident. I was very, very confident in what I was delivering. I was very confident in my process, in leveraging more, because that's something that I was already doing. Is by that point I was already leveraging a lot of interaction through actually podcasting at the time, just interviewing people that were at higher level, or even just interviewing people that had the right for the people that I wanted to attract as clients to listen to them. So it'd be interviewing a lot of...
Basically what we're doing now then, essentially.
Yeah, basically, you know, getting the right ears and eyes on the content that was mine, basically, to an extent. And then people would know of me, and then people would invest in me, you know. It's that kind of like, this whole thing of leverage. So yeah, I don't think I should have left any earlier. I think I left at the right time, and I had confidence to do so. But I think what I was trying to say there is, just from my perspective, now being in this position for, you know, coming up to a decade now, it's just, there are a lot of pros of doing it, but there are also a lot of cons and a lot of things that you'll always think, oh man, like this is stressful.
So we're never going to be in a position that we're going to leave and go, do you know what? This is going well. This is exactly what I thought it would be like. We're probably going to be like, shit, this is a bit of a fucked situation now. Like, we have not much money left. You know, we've left our jobs. They're probably not going to take us back.
If they listen to our podcast, then they're definitely not taking us back.
Yeah, we'll get sacked immediately. But maybe that's what we need.
So I would say you've taken 2 leaps, massive leaps, because obviously you've mentioned that leaving the 9 to 5 was a leap, and I know this is going to be a bit of a long answer for me, but I would say that doing the NBW's website was another massive leap. Would you agree?
I think so. I think that solidified another big business move, because the thing with NBW is I'm not just. It's not just a site, you know. I'm now managing a group of athletes, a team.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's really good.
Thank you very much.
Really good. I've been on the site. I think it's really good.
Thank you very much.
It's literally like it reminded me of the Trained by JP sort of platform.
Absolutely.
But it's the natural version.
Absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said, you know, at this point, you know, Jordan, Corin have been absolutely pivotal in terms of progressing myself as an athlete and as a coach. I learned an incredible amount from them, and I'm very, very, I'm always inspired. I mean, how can you not be inspired by them?
Yeah.
Incredible people. And, you know, being a part of Train by JP, obviously for the time that I was with them, you know, that kind of, I always knew that I was going to have to do something for the natural scene. I'd already kind of done it a little bit. I'm not sure if you knew, but I started a membership site a long time ago in 2017 called, it was just made by morriscoaching.com.
I'm quite familiar with that.
And it was, and we actually had loads of videos of Jack back on there on the day.
All right.
Laz Gelsey was recording Jack for the site back then. And, you know, that was my first stab at it, so to speak. I had Ben Howard again at the same time, logging on the forum and things like that. But it just didn't float because it wasn't the right attack and it wasn't the right time. The branding and the stance that I went with Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide was more of an inclusive thing. It wasn't like it was just a membership site for me. It was
when you say worldwide, that sounds inclusive. That sounds, and also those hoodies really nice. I haven't been able to get my hands. I haven't been able to get my hands on one. I've seen Jack is going, and the hoodies and the you know the sweatshirt. They are really nice. Yeah. And they look really good.
So why don't we just give a general overview, because I haven't looked too much into it as much as Matthew has.
Sure.
Just what is NBW, and you know, sort of why did you feel you had to go that way and start that?
Sure. So Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide is basically a membership site featuring only natural bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, like I said, to Train by JP in the sense that it's training videos, forum section, live streams, content that's educational through the course structure. And the sole goal is to have, one, a community where people feel like they can like be a part of something, which I think is why the clothing went so well. I actually said this on a podcast earlier. I said the fact that people feel like they can have an identity by wearing that logo. Oh, yeah, I'm a natural bodybuilder.
Oh, so when you see somebody wearing that, you're like, oh, so they must be...
They know AJ, they know...
Well, yeah, but they're into sort of progression and learning, and, you know, it's sort of like the identity that comes with it. That's what... Yeah.
And I think I've been training for a while now to a point where I think there's a good amount of people that look up to the way that I train and look up to the performance goals that I have and things like that, that it's almost according to the fact that, you know, when I first followed Jordan, I bought all similar outfits to what he had.
Yeah. I can relate.
Because I idolize him, you know. I think he's an amazing person. I want to feel strong like him in the gym, so I want to wear similar stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so now I'm seeing that kind of flick on its head to the point where I was in the gym the other day and the guy in the gym had the exact same trousers and the exact same NBW hoodie on me as me. And I saw that, I was like, wow, this is pretty damn cool to see it kind of flick a little bit and start, because I'm obviously now getting into my late 20s, almost 30. That's just crazy. So, you know, the 18-year-old, 19-year-old natural bodybuilder.
That's 21. Like we sort of look up to you into the strength, especially in the natural scene, and that's an important thing we can get to. But you know, when I look at enhanced people and their strength and their size, I'm thinking I'm not ready to take that leap, if ever.
Sure.
So I feel a certain level of discomfort comparing myself to them and their strength. Whereas you, I feel like, well, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can squat 220 for 10. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Hell of a squat.
Yeah, because I'm a power lifter. I like strength.
Sure.
So when I see stuff like that from a natural bodybuilder, I'm like, maybe I can do a bit of both. Maybe I don't have to focus on powerlifting. Maybe I can, look a little bit better too. And it does. We do look up to you, and it does have a big impact. That sort of creating that site, that clothing brand. It creates an identity, and people want to be like you.
Yeah, to an extent. So see, I feel sometimes a little bit uncomfortable saying that, but it is an important part of what builds the site, because we need people that look up to the people that are on the site. All the athletes that we have a good following, and have people that want to be like them a little bit, want to follow in their footsteps. And again, someone like Keith, someone like Ben. These are people. I mean, Ben's a massive idol of mine. To have him as part of the site. I watch all of his videos because I love him. He's one of my best friends, and he's a prime example of natural bodybuilding combined with a balanced lifestyle, with having a family and things like that. It's just amazing to see him get to work. So that's the reason why we built it, and to have the support of a lot of people, a lot of natural bodybuilders that either members or obviously came on board as athletes and wanted to do content, wanted to add to the site is tremendous. But it's more so also to start to bridge the gap, to offer more natural bodybuilders a actual opportunity, and looking at that as an opportunity. So we obviously pay for all the videographers to go out to the athlete to film the content, to have it produced, and then they get all the real content.
That's cool. I didn't actually know that was part of it. That's cool.
That's part of the buy-in of being an athlete, really. When the contract's written up, and I don't mind sharing the fact that these people are on contracts, they get a payment each month alongside the fact that they have the videographer content. So they are actually probably some of the first natural athletes to get sponsored in a truly like a whole natural platform, rather than being it's just sponsored by a supplement company or something like that.
You can have some creatine every month, sort of thing.
Yeah, this is what we're trying to get it towards, and then obviously pumping money back into natural bodybuilding by being headline sponsor of the Worlds that's coming up in June and things like that, and then headline sponsor of British finals. That's the sole goal, and then ultimately the leverage that's going to create is then creating something which can hopefully be financially prudent for myself and Loz and the others that are part of the site in the future. That's one of the long-term goals, but the main impact now is just to give back to the sport, give athletes a platform, allow them to share their journeys a little bit more and feel like fucking cool about doing it. It
is sick. It does look really good.
Like someone like Ben, for example, would be someone that would turn up at a pro show, look unbelievable, but no one would really know what he's done to get there. No one would really know that he's got a family and he trains only 3 times a week and
he has to get it done.
That's the thing I notice a lot of bodybuilders, that they're all in bodybuilding. They're not all in, what lens do I use? How do I make this content? How do I engage people? Really, they get their views because they look great. They're not really savvy in those other areas. They just focus on bodybuilding. So you offer them a way to sort of promote themselves further.
Exactly. Yeah. And, they feel like, they're a part of something professional and it looks good for their coaching and it gives them more buy-in to deliver the content and do a good job. But the big thing that I say to the athletes that are a part of the site is I just say, just be yourself, don't say anything that you feel like needs to be said or has to fit a certain bias. Be yourself, because Ben trains very differently. Josh trains differently, Ella doesn't logbook her training, all of these different things, that are nuances but make people individual. That's why we get them as part of the site, because we don't want to just be a one size fits all, top set back off clan.
Our way or no way.
Our way or not, our way or the highway, which is it's just not the way that we're going to attract a wider group of bodybuilders. And it's the same thing with having people from different federations, because there's still, unfortunately, in the natural scene, just this whole bias between federations and federations talking trash about others, and it's rubbish. So what we do is we make sure that we're kind of all inclusive, and obviously at the moment our primary show sponsor and the funding goes towards the UK FBA, but that's because I've just got relationships with the UK FBA. If any other natural federation reaches out to me, emails me and says, look, I want to work together, I'm all for it.
Are you going to make your own federation?
That's a
NBW.
That's a yes. Then
that's a big question. That's a big question. It would take a lot of thinking, and it would be only at a point where it would be, put it this way, it would be a handover of a current working federation.
Oh, so you just take over someone else.
In a way, that would be the only way that I would see it happening, because whilst, for me specifically, again, relationships, friendships, whilst the UK FBA is still running and like Lee and Amy are doing their thing, for me, I have no interest in creating a federation, because I respect them personally way too much. And I also actually respect I respect everyone, of course, and I'm not going out saying I don't respect people. But
you're not talking trash on people.
I massively respect what Guy and Vicky have done with the BNBF over the many years that they've been running it. The BNBF was my first ever show, and they always do like an unbelievable job with their show and with their federation. So I see no reason for me to go down that route. I have no desire. And I also know the amount of stress that it entails.
Yeah, I can imagine it being a huge logistical nightmare.
It's going from working with, now obviously gone from working with clients and working with a structure with check-ins and the way that I work with my coaching business, to then handling MBW and handling content structure and making sure that me and Alex are aligned with the same thoughts and making sure the content goes out at the right time, and then making sure that the athletes know what they're doing and they have their contracts and things like that. It comes a point where obviously I've got to maybe delegate some other tasks to other people. It's why I've brought on Alex, for example, to run all the videographer side of things, because there's no way in hell that I could do that properly.
And train and compete.
No way, 100% not. And even now, like over the last 6 months or so, I've kind of brought down my coaching roster a little bit to a number that I'm now comfortable with completely, and I can run everything seamlessly and really love it. And
it'd be unfair as well to your clients probably if you took loads more, because you wouldn't be able to give them that detail.
No, 100%. And that's something that I pride myself in, is that I'm very, very confident. You can ask any of my clients at any point, how's the service with AJ, and they'll be able to confidently answer you that it's of a high quality and its response times are great. I have 100% confidence within that. Even ask Jack, who sent me his bloody check-ins every single day.
He was talking about that. Yeah.
So and that's because, bottom line, I love this to bits and I love Jack to bits. So if Jack sends me a check-in, or if Jack says at the end of my session I'm dying, I'm trying to leave the gym undercover without him seeing me, it's like, can you look at me? Can you look at me? Well, just one shot.
Yeah.
It's never one shot, by the way. No, it's always about 5 shots.
You see, he's shown us his camera roll. There's no way.
He's got about 50k pictures of him flexing on there. It's
it's never one pose. I mean, it could be one pose. It'd just take a while to get into that one pose.
We could talk about Jack all day, but
I want to know why natural, because a lot of people go when they think of bodybuilding. This is the thing about, I like bodybuilding, but a lot of people dislike it for the wrong reasons. When people think of bodybuilding, they don't think of the self-mastery that comes with it. They don't think about the passion for progress.
Of course.
They don't think about all the little nuances that go into it. Like you said, becoming 1% better. They just think
about trend.
They just think about steroids and eating copious amounts of chicken and rice.
Yeah.
And I think they give a negative light to it, because, we've recently spoke to a lot of bodybuilders and they paint the same picture. It's all about self-mastery and it's all about the journey. So why natural?
So I think for me, when I started bodybuilding, I was in a gym where one of the main bodybuilders that I looked up to, alongside Nick, who I mentioned earlier, was an assistant bodybuilder who competed with the UK BFF. He was chasing his pro card. He still competes now, actually. Funny enough, when I was backstage with Jack Richardson last year at Two Bros, he was there and I bumped into him again. I was like, it's just crazy. I haven't seen you in like 10 years. And so, he was one of the first bodybuilders. So when I competed for the first time naturally, I went into that show thinking I would just, do one season as a natural and then probably look towards where the next steps were for me to go assisted, even when I was like 18. It's just nuts just thinking about it. And then I went to the natural show. I went to, BNBF Midlands was my first show in 2014. And I saw the caliber of athletes that were there in the men's open classes. Funnily enough, one of the guys that I saw was, and I'm pretty confident, It was Theo Golab, who now I've actually worked with him in a coach-client relationship.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
it's crazy how that kind of like swings and roundabouts turned around.
Yeah.
It was either that or it was the following year. I can't quite remember because it's a long time ago. But I saw the level of muscle mass that was attainable, basically, naturally. And then I started researching even more because at that time I was really just searching up assisted bodybuilders. I was, watching the Olympia, I was watching the Arnold, and that was all I really cared about.
That's where all the eyes are, though.
It's where all the eyes are, 100%. And that's another reason why the NBW thing is important, because it brings it further up the crop.
Yeah, because money as well. That's the money's in the assisted bodybuilding.
A lot of it, yeah. And it's just, you're right, it's the eyes is the main thing, because the eyes, and they get the views and it pops up higher, and then when people think bodybuilder, they just think,
Look at C-Bum.
Yeah.
He's got like 11 million followers on Instagram.
Everyone wants to be C-Bum. So,
Yeah.
and if you want to be C-Bum, you got to go assisted 100%.
Yeah.
So that then made me think, right, okay, well, if this is kind of possible, attainable naturally, then I'll be content chasing down that path. And that's pretty much what set the tone for staying natural. It just so happens that I fell in love with coaching natural athletes. I found that I was pretty well skilled at it and had a natural knack to build relationships, communicate well with people, and I had a good eye. I had a good eye for bodybuilders that were getting into shape for natural shows, because the first ever prep that I did with someone, he won a junior British title and went to Worlds, and that was when I was 19, and I'd never ever prepped someone before, and it was a friend that in the gym, was called Marcus, and he was my training partner at the time, and I referred him to Nick, my previous coach, and I said, got to go to Nick if you want to prep, because I can't do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't want anyone else to take me through it other than you. I want you to be there in the sessions and look at me and walk me through it. And so that was my first ever prep. But the gold aspect of that was that, we had check-ins where he'd send me pictures, but most of the time I'd be there, eyes on, and then we'd call each other. It wouldn't really be like check-ins. It would just be like
Informal
just chatting.
chats, yeah.
And I developed such a great understanding of what I need from someone within that prep. What do I need to know? How do I need to understand someone? What relationship do I need to build? And they became my pillars of success with clients. So when I started working with other people, I just began building those pillars with those people in a way that was obviously more efficient, because if I was calling everyone every day and chatting for an hour and a half, I would be able to have about 4 clients.
Yeah, of course.
So that for me then became my business. So it's like, right, okay, I was this natural bodybuilding coach. And then just like I was the motorsport kid in school, I'm now the natural bodybuilder guy. That's my identity.
That's how we see you, like probably the top in the UK for natural bodybuilding in terms of the business. Yeah, but so why still natural now then? You wouldn't ever?
No, 100%. I have no reason to do it. I think for me, if I went down the assisted path, I'd want to be extremely successful, not just as an athlete, but also as a coach. And there's a lot for me to learn. I barely know hardly anything about the assisted realm, because I've been so invested in my specialty. I've been so invested.
That seems so rare. It seems so rare because everyone at some point seems to just go, right, okay, I've had my time in natural bodybuilding, now I'm going to switch. So I think the mastery of natural bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding coaching. Yeah. But I just think eventually people move on as if it's sort of like an upgrade.
It's like warming up for being assisted.
But my point is you've stayed in it, so you've been one of the few people to actually invest time and learn, a shitload from it, which is rare. Which is probably why natural bodybuilding worldwide will be so successful and is already been seen as successful.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I 100% get it, and I listened to George's podcast with you guys, and I understand his rationale. Obviously, I was coaching him, so I understand his rationale, and I have nothing against that process of doing the natural stuff, doing it for a long time, competing, understanding whether you love it, applying yourself, which George has shown time and time again he can apply himself, and getting the right person in your corner to go down that path. So getting someone like Cal, probably one of the top coaches out there for that stuff. That to me is something that I totally understand. I get it. But for myself, I feel like I can achieve everything that I pretty much want in life by being a natural bodybuilder. For me, being assisted, going on the Olympia stage and things like that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But man, I don't even know if I have, like, you know, I see I work with some people that have got, in my opinion, elite tier genetics. You know, one of the names that stands out at the moment is Joshua Kenyon. If you've seen him, he's called Kenyon on Instagram.
I haven't seen him.
Well, you should, because he's a genetic phenomenon. And you see someone like that, and yes, he works hard. Yes, he's consistent, but the guy's a freak, an absolute freak of nature. It's perfectly put together, unbelievable muscle insertions, roundness, fullness, to the point where I just look at him every check and I'm like wow.
Does he have the right parents for legs?
I mean,
you forced me to change parents.
Yeah.
So you said you put that diary up. How to get? Was it quad insertions?
Yeah.
Just change your parents. So I had to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty easy process. It's not too.
The handover was smooth.
Yeah.
So I can't complain. But I think it's very good that you're doing that, the whole natural route, because it's something it's an endless journey, I think.
Yeah, and there's plenty out there. I think this is the thing with the natural bodybuilding worldwide as well, is that for a lot of people, I am that sort of like natural bodybuilder guy, but there's so many more out there. You know, in the European scene, there's a lot of great natural bodybuilders that have been doing this for a long time and that are coming up the top of the ranks and are displaying physiques that are just absolutely incredible. And, you know, if people start to see them, and then they also see the amount of time, you know, like, I don't look at myself and think that I've got, you know, really good genetics. I think I've got good shape and structure, but I've had to work very, 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 very hard to build the amount of muscle that I now do have, and to be competitive. I was not competitive, and I wasn't super competitive in the first few times I competed. I wasn't like straight to winning British Championships.
No, but you were in there.
I was in there. I my first couple of seasons, I placed third at a qualifier, didn't place at a British final. I then placed first at a qualifier, didn't place at a British final my second year. That was my teenage, pretty much career kind of summed up. I'd do well at a qualifier level, okay, and then I wouldn't really place in a British final. But it is really interesting that the team class back in 14 and 15, and maybe even 16 as well, was stacked. When I competed as a teen in 2015, I think we went to the British finals, the BNBF, and it's 18 teens in the lineup. We're now looking at maybe 6 max.
Do you think that kept you hooked then? That, being on the boulder between being too good for a qualifier and then not good enough. Do you think that kept you hooked?
Played a big role. I think if I'd have, it would be really interesting to know what route I would have taken if I'd just won everything. Yeah. Because I see that happen now, where people just come and basically slaughter everyone and do exceedingly well very quick. Yeah. And, you almost think they got it all too soon. I'm also happy that in my last prep, I didn't win at the world level and I didn't win the Olympia, because it made me want to be better so bad. It made me want to beat these people and find gaps that I can improve upon and be a better bodybuilder and be a better person as well. Handling loss for me is huge. After competing at the Worlds, I was so sure in my head that I was going to win. It was if anyone asked me whether I was going to win, I'd tell them with certainty that I was going to win, because I thought no one could touch me. And that mentality is great going into a contest, but and it's great because when you have that mentality of no one is going to beat you, you do things that winners do consistently, because you're no one can beat me. Yeah. But after contest, it hits you like an absolute train. It's brutal. Yeah. And I sat outside the venue and cried my eyes out with Loz for a good half an hour because I was wrecked. And it breaks you, but that's a winner's mentality. If you're not hurt after a loss,
it doesn't mean anything to you.
It doesn't mean enough to you. It doesn't mean enough to you. It really doesn't. You should feel damn disappointed. Yeah. You should. And the biggest thing is how you bounce back from that. I came out of that show and I had the opportunity to compete at the Olympia. I wasn't initially going to do it, and then I turned my head around and I was like, let's just do this, And I went into the Olympia with the next show I went into it with a very different mindset, a mindset that yes, I want to win, but I'm aware that I could lose. You know, I came in with that mindset, and that definitely softened the blow at that last show. But I'd be lying to you if I said that the next time I compete, I'm going to go back with that Wales mindset. I'm going to be back with the no one can beat me kind of mentality, because for me, that's how I operate. That's how I function. That's how I approach sport. And I don't...
And life.
Yeah, and life. And I get very emotional about business as well. It's the same thing. If a client loses a show and I feel like they should have won, I will get upset. If I lose a client that I really love working with and I know has potential, and they go somewhere else, which happens, I will get upset. It happened to me with a client back end of last year, and I just got on the sofa in the evening with Loz and just cried.
Yeah,
because I was like, what could I have done? And you know, the person that did go at that time had legitimate reasons and was actually quite upset about it themselves, because we'd formed such a great relationship. But I feel like sometimes in coaching, that's one of the things that actually can be just as much as a curse as it is a blessing, because the more you build a relationship, the finer the line becomes between friendship and coach dictatorship.
That's a situation we are in now. We built a friendship with our coach, especially Matthew, before him becoming a coach. And then once he became your coach, he had to... Not step back, but he had to be careful about how much of a personal friendship you were building, you know, because like that would... Well, he clearly knew, because he's done it for a while. He knew that maybe that wouldn't be the smartest way to go about it, is just having a real, you know, hands-on personal relationship as well as a client-coach interaction. Because can you have a client-coach interaction if it was like me and you? I couldn't coach you, you couldn't coach me, because we're too close in other ways. Yeah, it just wouldn't work.
That sounds very fishy. You made that sound a bit fishy, but I think I can do that though. I think I can draw the line quite easily between the emotional boundaries of friend and client. But I want to know, how do you sort of do that then? Like, how would you draw the line between coach and client? Because obviously we're going to need to know this in business going forward, and obviously you're quite successful business owner. Sure. So I would love to know how you do that and how you operate that business on an emotional and intellectual level.
Sure. So I honestly think it just comes down to, you know, your communication like points at which you actually have conversations with these people. So when you are set to have a conversation that is in a business setting, like it's, you know, coach client, it's a check-in, or coach client, it's an update on their progress, that needs to be completely separate to the chats that you may well have on a friendship level. You can't really mix in friendship with that to a huge degree, especially when there's a performance, like a genuine performance outcome, like stepping on stage and doing well. I think it's all fine and good developing a relationship, showing your personality, having a little bit of a joke. But if your whole 10-minute check-in that you send to a client, or a 5-minute check-in that you send back to a client, is filled with jokes, that's not coaching really anymore. It's just having a laugh for 5 minutes with your client. And there needs to be a boundary between those two. You need to give dictatorship. You need to be someone that they look to for authority. And, you know, like for me, right at this moment in time, like someone like Adam, for example, Adam Powell, who's like one of my clients. He's had amazing success last year. You know, we're friendly to the point where he'll message me most days. We'll chat most days. Often it's him asking a question about training or nutrition. And obviously in that moment, we are talking about training and nutrition. So it's serious answers and serious direction. If we have a conversation that's typically from a friendship perspective, it's often like for a DM on Instagram, like kind of in a chilled, relaxed fashion. It's a different tone. It's a different direction of the conversation. Whereas, you know, you have to be on it with knowing the difference. I think that's the key. And when it's business, it's business. When it's play, it's a little bit of play, and that's fine. But there has to be a point where you flip the switch. You know, for example, if we were all play and no business, and this guy's going through a peak, it's just, you know, he's going to be lost. He's going to not have any direction. So when it's prep time and when they're close to shows, it's like they don't even want to joke. They don't want to even have a massive laugh. Yeah. I think if anything, I'm actually one of those people that, you know, when I'm with clients leading up into a show, I try and just get everyone to just kind of chill out and relax as much as possible. And have some fun, because I am someone that can actually get the other side of having fun to the point where I'm super serious all the time, and then they almost feel that seriousness rub off on them.
Yeah, I feel interactive with you. You come across as quite serious, but I think that's just your professional level.
Professional, not serious as in dry serious.
Yeah,
I'm if you crack a joke, I won't smile or anything.
No, I know what you mean.
yeah.
I think what I've learned, especially with socials as well, is that as you work with more people, and especially as I now work with a lot of clients that are, older than me. I've always worked with clients that are older than me. I work with people that are in their 40s and their 30s, and very mature and professional individuals that have busy lives and need to be treated in a way that allows them to be efficient with their coaching process. So I think all of me is like, I have this like professional outer edge, but like if you get to know me, I'm actually quite jokey and playful and like fun. I've always been that way. If you ask Jack, like we always have a laugh and a joke all the time. And, I think when I was younger, I showed more of that online. I showed more of my jokey character, sarcastic. But I would say that maybe harmed me a little bit, because people took me less seriously.
Right.
And when I'm running businesses and when I am the front of that business in a way, I sometimes have to audit myself a little bit with the content that I put out, and just think, is X gonna think differently about the way that this might be sarcastic to me, but it might be a bit of a, what the hell is he doing to someone else?
The perception is different.
So, and it is annoying, because, like people should just relax a little bit someday.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like, to use a bit of a weird word, but there's a lot of snowflakes out there now that like can't take a joke or...
Yeah, we found that. I mean, even with Jack, we put some stuff up and he's had some huge backlash. It wasn't a joke. Some of the stuff he said was controversial.
Of course,
but you can't please everyone regardless of what you say.
If we tried to please everyone in this conversation, it would.
And I'm not someone to hold back. I'll tell you exactly how I feel. I'm always blunt on a podcast. I'll be like, this is this, and then Matthew's like, that could be a bit controversial. But we don't censor it.
No.
But it's gonna. I know that someone's gonna be like, "Oh my god, how dare you?"
Yeah.
There's bound to be someone.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think thing is now everyone's individual opinion is judged. It's always judged. Yeah. It's always, is that right? Is that wrong? And we're always feeling like we have to live in this protective little bubble nowadays. You can't say anything that's not taken in a different way or the wrong way or something like that. So I am probably a little bit more cautious now than I used to be. And it's probably a reason why I moved away from doing more like vlog style content.
Yeah, I've noticed your YouTube has gone, your content on YouTube, obviously because you have a paid platform, it doesn't make sense for you to upload on YouTube, but you had the Upshift series, which was really cool, and the cinematics for that was really cool as well.
Yeah, Gasman on the video.
Yeah, with the tunnel and all that.
That was Jay actually, that was Magic Eye.
That was really good, but I've noticed the YouTube content has stopped now.
Yeah.
Would you ever go back to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to go back to the YouTube content, even if it's short form versions of some sessions that are live on Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide. But it's a difficult one, because there's part of me that I love sharing content and I love sharing what I'm getting up to. There's also another part of me that I feel like you have to be so thick-skinned on YouTube, and it also, it does, when I get comments that are like very picky about my life or what I'm doing, or like if I share something, people think, oh he's showing off. Or he's only doing this because of that or something. People are very judgmental, and like I said, you have to be thick-skinned. But someone also told me, I remember having a conversation with someone on a world's trip with the UK FBA, and they were like, you know what, like here's your choice, like to get judged. You always have that choice, and he's like a good businessman anyway, so I respect him a lot. But he said, like how much is that bringing you? Like, do you need the YouTube? And then weigh up how much is it draining you or worrying you or making you feel anxious about comment or judgment? And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like there's probably some more cons than there are pros at some point with sharing, especially sharing like the lifestyle stuff and like my house and my relationship and. I feel like there's a gap where I can share content and share training, and I love that. But in between that mix, and even sharing my prep to a massive audience. I found that in 2020 when I did the Upshift series specifically, very, very overwhelming, and almost like a bit of a pressure that was in the back of my mind at all times.
Yeah.
And I felt like sometimes I was, thinking more about the content than I was thinking about trying to just pour all my energy into the prep.
Yeah.
And then back end of 2021, when I came a bit more quiet on the content, did a few little training videos, but not much. I was so much more locked in mentally. So I have massive respect for people that can run content all the way through their prep. Very, intense, and, people in the house of cameras and stuff, because I found that I don't necessarily operate at my highest level when that's going on.
Right.
It takes away from me a little bit, for sure. It takes away energy. It takes away a small amount of my focus that I feel is more fair to put towards my own process, or obviously primarily my business.
But what is that though now? Because you've obviously got a couple of different parts of your life which you could dedicate all your time to and still have more things you need to do, right?
Yeah.
So, are you at a position now? Are you going to start pulling back from coaching and then sort of see NBW and grow that from a managerial perspective? Are you still going to put a lot of time in the competition? Like where do you spread your time now? Because you have a lot of different areas which are quite successful, which
Sure.
you're going to fill your time quite quickly if you go evenly. So where are your priorities essentially?
I think right now the business within coaching is at a level where I'm comfortable staying where I'm at. I don't really want to grow that from the perspective of working with more people. Obviously, if an opportunity comes around and it's a really good client to have on board, and I really want to help them, then of course I'd probably take that opportunity. But for the most part, I'm pretty content with having the coaching sitting around about where it's at.
Yeah.
The site takes a good amount of my time. It doesn't take a huge amount. It took a lot at the start. It took a lot about this time last year, building up the content, talking to people, building the site. We're just in the process of confirming the app, which luckily I haven't had much to do with. Just get someone to sort it and get it all externally sorted. And I think, from now onwards, it's really a case of watching that steadily grow to the point where I can maybe even go lower on the coaching, and I can just work with even more higher profile clients that, are wanting to heading towards higher level of competition. Yes. But I think more so it's just working with athletes that really want to stay with me for their entire career. So again, someone that's maybe never competed before, not had much success, winning their first show, winning a pro card, going through the professional ranks. That to me is so important, like working with a client for a whole career. So that's really what I want to take the coaching towards, maybe in, 10 years time, something like that. Right now, I'm really more than happy working with, obviously some coaching journeys come to an end, another client comes on board, but as long as those numbers stay pretty consistent, I'm happy with the coaching side. Yeah. And, obviously there's little bits going on with the clothing side of things as well, with the Be Epic stuff that I've done a few little releases here and there. And the thing that I've realized with the clothing is that it takes just such a long time to get stuff in motion. And the more basic that I keep things and the more local that I source stuff, the easier it is. Because, we did those launches of these like basketball, American jersey style things. Yeah. Man, they took 8 months to get a sample. 8 months. From a draw up to a proper sample, 8 months. And so that's a long turnaround time for us to wait for product. It means that we have to think so much further ahead.
Yeah, you're thinking of 3 to 5 year projects then.
You really are. And I know there's quicker ways to do it for sure, and quicker ways to turn things around, but I feel like I haven't been able to trust people enough to get stuff done. And I feel like I'm constantly chasing people with the clothing. And the fact is, I haven't got enough time to keep chasing people. I haven't got, I actually haven't got the passion. It's not even the lack of time. I haven't got the passion to keep chasing people for clothing bits. I love seeing people win the clothes, but I'd honestly rather just get NBW embroidered on a nice basic hoodie
Like the ones
that fits people well. And I know it fits people well because I wear them all the time. It's the only stuff I wear apart from the occasional nice tracksuit.
Yeah.
And I'd rather just pump out a load of those, see people in them, see people wearing them, representing the brand. And, you know, the big thing, anything that's like ever been leveraged, Trained by JP, Gymshark, it's just been worn by people that, you know, inspire others.
Yeah,
So
you've
when
got Ultraflex, and there's a lot of these hoodies in there.
Yeah, there is.
You know, Kuba is usually wearing a big oversized Trained by JP hoodie.
Yes.
This
He has to.
This style, yeah.
Can I clear something up? Are you the only ever natural athlete to be sponsored by Trained by JP?
Unless you count the fact that there's probably been, I don't know actually,
Because I
most of the
thinking of that.
educators have been assisted at some point, I think. Unless there was an educator that's maybe not been assisted. Like, what I mean is like, you know, the people that were doing the courses and the content structure. But I think I probably was, to be honest.
That's quite historic. That's quite big.
I was very, 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 very honoured to be in that situation. Like, I didn't take it lightly at all. And like the only reason why I stepped away was simply because I knew that what I wanted to pursue would cross paths.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the passion that I have to create a platform for the natural bodybuilding, I would have stayed. I would have stayed for as long
Crazy
as I possibly
opportunity,
could.
that, yeah.
It was just a bit of a hard position to be in, and you know, it was a tough one really. But I had to make that decision because if I didn't, I knew that someone would have built a platform in the next 1 or 2 years, and I'd have looked at that and just thought,
Yeah, regrets.
shit,
Too little, too late.
So, but you know, Jordan Corey completely understood it, so I was very grateful for that. But yeah, like you know, obviously that kind of like model is something that I've always been inspired by. And it's not like, you know, anyone's copying anyone, because if you look at, you know, Gymshark were probably some of the first people to get like true leverage in the fitness industry with like influence and stuff. So it's just following what works, you know, it's following a recipe to success. But yeah,
Just putting your spin on it.
Yeah, just putting the spin on it, and you know, the stuff is basic, but it works. You know, it's an identity. It's a brand image that's the main thing is going out.
Yeah.
And if we can produce more stuff over the course of time, we can make it easier and make it even more affordable to the customer. Then the great news.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the future then. What are your plans? Because I'm sure you've got plans to really supersize
Plans you probably can't
NBW.
share as well.
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, what do you see it looking like in the coming years? You know, what's your plans?
Sure. So, business-wise, I'd love to get NBW to a point where it's consistently over 1,000 members every single month. I mean, I'd obviously love to get it more than that, but that's the first like kind of big goal that I wanted to get at. We're just now at about 440 members. So we're halfway, and I feel like we're not even into a year of running the business yet. So I feel like there's a lot more room for, you know, ways and means that we can grow the business. You know, we're not. I don't think we're touching the edge in terms of, you know, the marketing we can do, the SEO, all of the things that can add up towards progressing that, getting eyes on it. So that's one of the big goals. Alongside that is, you know, create kind of a legacy in natural bodybuilding with the coaching side of things, to the point where I've created multiple pros across many federations, winning more British titles, you know, securing more overall titles. And not only that, but taking people that never once believed that they could win something and getting them to win something, getting them to do exceedingly well from a place where they felt like they couldn't. That's the biggest reward for me, is when I see someone's face when they like don't even almost expect to win and then they win. It's like, that's such a rewarding process. And the coaching thing for me is more than placings, because I've had people's parents come up to me after shows and pull me aside and say, AJ, I just want to thank you so much for the impact that you've had on my son or my daughter. Yeah. Because it's not just bodybuilding. It's
personal development.
It's personal development. Yeah. It creates structure in their day. It changes them from someone that didn't get out of bed until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning to someone that gets up out of bed at 6 or 5 or earlier. And, you know, parents see that change. And when they see that change, they're like, you know, the bodybuilding thing is doing you good. And I also help my younger athletes to try and make sure that everything they do for bodybuilding, I'm like, if you don't want to do this for a long time, you need to make sure that when you're having a crap day, you kind of don't show it too much, because bodybuilding will make you feel tired and drained and, you know, going through hardship at times. And yes, you need to share that with me, but when you're at home, you know, try and flick a switch a little bit and remind your parents that, yes, you know, come in the door and be tired or be run down, but say, look, you know, I'm tired of run down, but I love what I do. You know, remind them that you do love what you do. You know, if you truly are obviously passionate about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult thing with parents, I imagine. I mean, in any sport, I mean, they probably just don't understand why you would want to put yourself.
It's safety, isn't it? They all want safety for you.
Yeah, they do. They're scared of the drug side of things often as well. And I've had to have like phone calls with parents and just like being like, you know, we're competing drug free. You know, this is something which will be challenging and will require a recovery process afterwards. But provided that, you know, everything goes well and everything's adhered to, this will be a process in which, you know, they'll recover from relatively quickly after the diet. You know, 2 months of reversing food and they'll be good to go.
Because that's what I like about bodybuilding. You know, I like bodybuilding for the principle. I don't have any interest in competing because I enjoy, you know, I don't. That's just not something I'm truly passionate about.
Of course.
However, I do much like the principles in bodybuilding. Yeah. That's why I resonate a lot with you. Excuse me. That's why I resonate a lot with you, is because of the passion for progress you have and the attitude you have, mainly towards training, towards life. Like you spoke about this yourself, about challenge and driving yourself out of bed every day, and that's something that I really take from bodybuilding. And I said earlier about people looking at bodybuilding in a negative light. Yeah. I think people should look at it in the way of what it does for you,
100%,
not what it does to you per se.
Yeah, that's literally it. You know, it's look for the positives, don't look for the negatives. You know, and there's so many to be taken from it. But yeah, to get back to the question as well about, you know, future goals. I think for myself, competitive, that's business side of things. Yeah. And then for myself, competitively, I want to, of course, step back on stage again. I haven't really fixed a confirmed, you know, year that I'm going to do that. I am like lining up 2024, but we'll see. It has to be the right time. It has to be the right time business-wise. It has to be the right time personal life-wise. And equally, I want to know that I'm going to be a lot better and be improved and be stepping on stage. I will be doing a very similar thing to the thing that I did last prep, where I don't really show much during the prep at all, and then I just step on stage and people can see the end product.
I noticed this. It's very hard to see current physique. So
is that a mind game thing with people?
It's not really a mind game thing. It's never meant to be a mind game thing. However, I've had competitors come up to me and say that I'm making them freak out, that like I'm bigger or harder or
it's
whatever.
Like sculpture.
It might be playing a role, but let's face it, I treat my shows like they're my Olympia. So for me, it works better if I
it's like an unveiling. Then.
Yeah,
is that the way you see it?
It makes it more exciting for me to know that people are going to see something that they've not seen yet on the show day. So, and for me also, if that like gets more people in the venue and gets a crowd, I'm all in for that.
So intrigue.
If I can gather intrigue and excitement for people to, you know, come and see a physique, then that to me excites people for natural bodybuilding, you know. And there was a few people that had seen pictures of me in the condition I was in 2021, and we're telling others he's looking ridiculous, he's looking really, really good. And then on you know, I had people I know for a fact that didn't think I was good, that thought I was going to look very similar to 2020, and I turned up and looked much different. And then I had people come up to me and say, bloody hell, like, what did you do in those 6 months, you know? So, and that's definitely something I'm going to do, because also very similar to what I was talking about with YouTube is I found it was so much better just living in my own head, not having the noise, not having the comments of you look amazing or you look great, just me being my own critic. And obviously like Loz being a bit of a second eye in person for me, because she knows my physique very well. And then also I send some pictures to Ben Howard and he checks them, and that's pretty much it. That's me. That's how I run my preps, and I know for sure that works. Because, clearly. That's what brings out the best in me mentally. And so I'll be doing that again whenever I get back on stage and producing, basically showing off however long the off season would have been. That would be showing off 2 or 3 years of work in just one moment. And I love that aspect of bodybuilding in the sport. So yeah, get on stage again. My goal right now is winning the overall title at the UK FBA. Obviously, I won my class and I won the British overall title, but I got beaten by German dudes in the overall. So I don't want to. That's not going to happen again. Put it that way. So I will be good enough to be 100% getting that title next time I step up there. And then after that, I don't really mind what happens after that. That's such a huge goal for me that, you know, if it comes with a pro card or, you know, I compete as a pro, it doesn't really matter that much to me. The professional ranks and the status is great. The only thing that would really excite me about going into the professional ranks, accepting my pro card and being a professional bodybuilder in the natural scene would be competing against like Ben Howard, you know, and maybe going and doing a DFAC Grand Prix as well as doing like, so if I did a show like with Ben Howard, it might be like INBA, PNBA Worlds, or it might be then if the DFAC accept PNBA Pro card, go and do the DFAC Pro Grand Prix, which is the one that Keith does.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And if I could compete against Keith whilst he still stays this side of the equation, I'd love.
As in the
I'd love
natural
to do
equation.
That. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. I still don't know where Keith is at on that front. I know for sure that he was contemplating the switch, and I can understand totally why. But I think he had a slight.
That's a
scary thought.
It's a scary thought of a 400 kilo puller, isn't it? Like doing 400 kilos for doubles 2 weeks out or something like that. I think you know he's just completely from. I could talk about Keith all day. He's one of my best friends and one of my greatest inspirations in this sport as a whole. So, but yeah, you know, like having an opportunity like that would be the biggest intrigue for me competing as a professional bodybuilder. But it's a hard one because for so long I idolized the WNBF Worlds and looked up to Brian Whitaker and wanted to win the WNBF World. If you asked me 3 years ago, what do I want to do when I turn pro, is it would be get a WNBF Pro card and compete at the WNBF Worlds and win the pro overall. That would be my 100% goal, because that's what Brian Whitaker did in 2015, and he beat the middleweight and the heavyweight in the pro overall, and it's just like that for me is so inspiring. So I'm probably always going to be a lightweight pro, 165, 166 on stage. So, but then the UKFBA changed to affiliate with the INBA, PNBA for a bunch of long reasons that we don't need to discuss. And then my whole perception of what my goals were changed. Yeah. Because I went to the Olympia for the first time, the Natural Olympia, and there's all these different people that I'd never seen really before in terms of natural bodybuilding. And they're amazing, they're great, but I had no perception of what that meant to me anymore. You know, since I was so young, I'd been looking up to different people and going to the WNBF Worlds every year. To have that all flipped changed my perception of what it means to be pro. But you know, then Lee again, you know, runs the UKFBA, one of my best friends. She said to me, look, you know, like we don't chase pro cards, you know, chase titles, chase winning shows that mean stuff to you then now.
Not just a card.
Yeah, not just a card. So, you know, you always have, in natural bodybuilding, it's a little bit of a weird one, but you always have the choice. You don't have to accept the pro status. You don't have to take the card. If you win a pro card, you don't have to take it. The moment you turn pro is the moment you compete as a pro. That's it.
Yeah. So you could be a pro, technically, you've got your pro card, but you don't accept it and still compete amateur.
Amateur, yes.
So why would you do that then?
If you thought you weren't ready to be a pro. If you thought honestly that the moment you won your pro card, you didn't earn it in the right place at the right time to then transition to be a good pro, then you can choose to compete amateur. And the same reason applies.
But do you give that up then? You can't then later, a couple of months later, go,
no,
actually,
you can't.
Take it.
In my opinion, that would be a ridiculous rule, I think, if you could do that. But I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But yeah, like, for example, in the year of COVID, I won a PNBA pro card at the Europeans in that Upshift series.
Yeah.
And the moment, in the time, I was like, I've done it. I've achieved it. And then I look back and I was like, I came second at the show that I cared the most about.
Yeah.
You know, I got beaten by someone that was better than me.
You want to win there all.
So then I want to win. So then I came back in 21. The only reason why I came back in 21 was to win that show, to go back and be number one there. And I did that. So now the only thing that really remains in that sort of level for me is to take the whole show at that level, and then I can think about what comes next. But yeah, I think sometimes when I look at the pro scene as well, is that there's great top pros, but the depth of the pro classes in natural bodybuilding sometimes isn't great. And for me, I'd rather be competing in really deep amateur lineups where the top 5 is all ridiculously good, rather than be competing in a lineup where there's 2 or 3 other really good guys and then a load of other people that really should, without sounding blunt, should still be amateur.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So that's long-term goal-wise where I think I'll be heading.
So what means more to you then? Being a very successful competitor or being a complete figurehead for natural bodybuilding and making the NBW huge? I know that's a tough question.
That's if you think you have to pick one.
Yeah. If I was ultimating it to you, what would you choose?
I think being the figurehead, if I'm being honest, like, I think for me that has more of an impact. I have more of a long-standing impact on the sport, and in a positive way, than it will just be winning stuff, you know. And you can win stuff in the right time, in the right place, but it takes someone with a lot of dedication, willpower, and consistency to be a headline figure and be willing to put in the work that's required to basically bring up the sport even more, and, you know, give back in a way as well. You know, be business minded and create something that could provide benefit long term, but in the short term maybe be something that just creates, you know, more things to do and more money to go out and more funding to be found. But yeah, I think that's probably what I'd prefer to have stamped to my name, so to speak, rather than just a bunch of titles.
Yeah, because that's a legacy then for you, isn't it?
It's long term, isn't it? Yeah, it's more long term than just, okay, won a couple of British titles and then went back into his shell and didn't really come out again. So yeah, I'd rather be there, be present, and I enjoy that as well. I enjoy being a part of the game and being in the mix whilst I'm not on stage. You know, being there either with clients or being there as a, you know, a sponsor, or, you know, doing coverage of the show. All of those things to me mean probably a little bit more. But it's hard because you're asking me at peak off season. If you ask me this question at any less than 12 weeks out,
we'll come back 11 weeks out.
Oh yeah, you can 100%. I'm a completely different person.
That's why I'm asking, you know, because I sense that you have.
What do you mean by that then? Sorry to interrupt. What do you mean by different person? I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, but just give me an idea.
Don't get me wrong. I'm still very focused on my business, but I'm so deep in my mindset of winning and succeeding as an athlete that if you were to ask me that question, there wouldn't even be a thought. It would just be like, I just want to win. I just want to win as an athlete. And you know, that to me doesn't mean that I have to compromise the legacy that I build as a businessman or with NBW. It just means that I'd be putting in obviously a huge amount into my athlete process as well. I think that's, this is just a different space that I have to be within my head. But I talk about this a lot, even in the course of Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide on the contest prep section. I talk about how the intensity of your mindset needs to operate on a scale when you're moving from off-season to contest prep. Is off-season, you tick your boxes, you be consistent, you nail things 100% because you have to. That's where you make the progress. But in a contest prep, as you get closer to the show, like the intensity rises and rises and rises as you get closer and closer and closer, and you become more of this like locked in on the target. You have to do that, because if you don't, there'll be someone out there that's more locked in than you, and they'll be probably doing things better. Yeah. So, you know, I like to live in that headspace, but only for a period of time, because it's hot. It has a hot temperature in there. You stay in there for too long and you'll burn. It's the same, you know, if you apply that, I see it all the time. I see, you know, people that I work with at 25 weeks out, 26 weeks out, and they're like, mate, I've got my hood up, head down. You know, I'm listening to Machiavelli motivation.
Like 6 months.
Yeah, I'm listening to Machiavelli motivation whilst I'm doing my cooking, my meals, and I'm like, mate,
that's a long way, mate.
Just come off the gas pedal a little bit, because I respect that mentality, but that mentality is it's gonna be hard to keep that fire burning at full pelt all the way through, and that's gonna hurt you when you're gonna need it, because you need it when you're close and you're on your last legs. That's when you're really gonna need that mentality and that sort of dog eat dog kind of, you know, mindset.
Can you relate that to racing at all? Because you can't just put your gas on all the way throughout the course.
Absolutely. You know, you've got to be precise. You got to think ahead. You got to make long-term decisions. at the start of a race, you can't go for a ridiculous move. You've got to pace it. On track, you also got to figure out competitors. You got to learn who you're racing against. It's the same thing on stage. Sometimes you got to learn who you're competing against, learn their strong points, learn their weak points. On a track, you had to learn where people would break, where people had weaknesses, where you'd catch them throughout a sector. And, that for me, throughout the pretty much 7 years that I did that, I learned a lot about human psychology and the way that other people work. And then that allowed me to be a better coach and also a better competitor. Because I think about not only how I think, but I think about how other people think.
That's what I'm interested in. I like psychology as well.
Yeah,
I think it's essential, especially with podcasting, because we're literally picking your brain a bit here, and we're asking for your standpoint on different things.
Yeah, well, I'm not asking you questions about where do you think you're going to place, because I'm more interested in where it comes from, the source of that mindset.
Of course,
I think that's something that you can talk about for a while, because your mind isn't simple; it's very complex. And like you said, there's a lot of layers to it, and there's different times for thinking and different times for thinking different things. And I want to ask a bit of a personal question now. I want to ask, what advice would you give someone like ourselves, 21 years old, trying to grow something, trying to get somewhere in the world? What would you say? Because you've obviously been in our position, not with the podcast and whatnot.
Breaking down every week.
Breaking down, crying and working from home. What would you say to us? What would be AJ Morris's recommended path to passion for progress?
I think it's a broad spectrum of a question, but the main thing is just being relentless. Having set out goals and structure to where you're going to go, but equally reminding yourself that there's several different paths that you could go down to get up that ladder and to progress. Yes, have vision, have a rough end goal. That's really quite key. If you were to ask me back in 2014, where do you want to be in 10 years, I'd have told you, very busy with the online coaching side of things, coaching pros, taking people to the highest tier of natural bodybuilding. And that would pretty much be me. And that's why every single day I work towards, right, how can I get there? So, be relentless in your pursuit of what you actually really truly want. But first of all, you have to find out what you truly want. What do you actually want out of the businesses that you're trying to create and cultivate within? You've got to figure that out first. It might take some trial and error. It might take some wrong moves or some wrong decisions or some mistakes. But as long as you learn from them, then you're going to get closer to finding it. And then when you find it, the ladder just gets climbed. When you get knocked down, cool, not a problem. Pick it up, keep going again, progress even further, and find along the way the weak points that you have, the issues that maybe arise, and again, fix them, learn from them, be better, build something that then when you get to your end goal is pretty solid.
Yeah.
It's almost a bit indestructible, so to speak, because you've gone through so many problems, you've been relentless through all of them. So that's really what I'd stick to. And, don't ever forget that deep down why, that reason. And it's okay to have days where you don't feel up for it, or you feel a little bit frustrated, or like I said, you have an issue arise that you hadn't predicted. But you've absolutely got to work through those, and you've got to come back and get after it. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Be relentless, basically.
So stay relentless, basically.
Yeah. That's the long and short of it. I mean, for me, when I look back, I've made a lot of progress over a relatively short time period, but that's because alongside being relentless, I was quite all in from the get-go. So it didn't really look like, having much time off, really. It didn't look like having a week where I wasn't posting content, or a week where I missed out on a process of my business that was stepping me forward. So it was every single day. There was a point where I was really in a growth phase business-wise and the social media side of things, where I'd have 2 scheduled posts every single day. I remember 9 and 5 every single day for months on end. I'd go through sprints of YouTube content where I'd post daily. I'd answer a question. I'd just be like, right, what question am I getting from my client? I'd just make a YouTube video on it. I'd pump it out. I think a lot of people as well, which sometimes frustrates me, they think that my monetization of NBW was for mostly for personal gain, which obviously is incorrect. And then secondly, they think that I've jumped the gun, or I've just copied, or I've just done something no one else has done. It's not that. You know, I've churned out content since 2015 for free. Hours. If you're really smart about it, you could probably learn 90% of what is on NBW by trawling through all the content that I've got for free online, either on podcasts or on previous YouTube videos or on vlogs, whatever it is. Most of it's probably there.
Yeah.
You know, you just have
Just genuinely wanting to provide value for as little as possible.
That's really it. You know, like even the site itself, you know, like the way that it's set up is for someone that can't maybe afford coaching to come, and if they listen to all the content, I guarantee they could prep themselves for a show. They could go for a very successful off season. They could probably get very close to coaching others consistently with great results if they just took the time to go through most of the content and then ask some relevant questions specific to people they're working with or themselves. So, you know, that for me is like, you know, one of the biggest things. Just to bring it back to your question, you know, you guys have got to find the why, find the problems that anyone's having getting to, like, you know, your content, or find issues that you need to resolve, and just keep problem solving. You know, so it's a long step-by-step process of problem solve until you get to the point where you are at your end goal.
I felt hooked this entire podcast listening to you speak. Like I could honestly listen to you talk all day.
Yeah. Do you know what I love? It's that sort of, yes, the seriousness, but you just, like, I can just tell from you don't mess about with your life and your business. This is serious. This is your success.
Big time.
I feel like you don't know me at all, but I sometimes fall off the wagon. I'll go out for a pint, and Matthew's like, do you want this or not? And even though yes, the answer is yes, my actions don't live up to that, and I sometimes wonder. But then I'm telling myself, if I didn't work my 9 to 5, I'd be able to do that. Sure. But I think it's just a mindset shift. You've got to be relentless. You've got to go for it. I think we have to now. Like, we have to do this now.
I'm guilty of that. I'm very, like, all in. Like, you wanted to, like, go out and watch the rugby. You know, the Six Nations is on. Obviously, it's a big time for you know, rugby fans.
Of course.
And I was like, this is literally, there's no play. It's all work. Yeah. I don't know if you're like that. Do you have, like, a work-life balance, like, where you go out and enjoy, or is a large majority of your life work?
I think it's very different when you're at the start versus when you've built something.
Right.
I think when you've started to build something, it's important to have things that bring you away from the life, the hecticness of your day to day.
Yeah.
Because when you're in it and it's busy and it's consistent, every day it's like there's noise. It's just noise. It's things coming at you. It's things to solve. It's things to do. When you're building it, you're trying to form strategies and think ahead. It's a completely different mindset. When you're in it, and it's just like very...
I just feel like this is the time where I can't afford to be going. I can't afford to be going out. Like, we're at the beginning, and if we don't build momentum, it will never... It's not going to run itself without us building the momentum. And I think we got to go for it now.
Yeah, I think, you know, when I look back to what the environment that I had when I started out, it was an environment that was very much appropriate for being all in. You know, I didn't have a relationship. You know, I lived at home. I would just work when I could work, you know, and my parents would be the only ones that would try and stop me from working. You know, they'd say, surely you can, you know, have some time off, or
you've got to enjoy your life.
Go on a holiday. You've got to enjoy yourself. You know, this is the thing. Is, like, I think a lot of people want to be that person that's going to be there. Your parents are going to be people that are always going to be, like, very protective and, you know, want to keep you safe and, you know, not going to, you know, don't want to be overworked. But
no such thing.
I think that overworked and, you know, stressed out period, you have to do it. You have to go through that. You have to do hours that no one else is willing to do, and, you know, put up days, like, you know, almost like you're doing today, put up days that other people aren't going to be doing.
Yeah, when we get home at 2 a.m. and then I'm in the office by 8 a.m., no one else is going to want to do that.
But I don't.
Great,
I
good.
Don't care. I do that.
Yeah,
like,
good.
Because I know that's where it takes.
Yeah. We could sacrifice
myself.
the podcast with Clwb and go home early. But then we haven't done a podcast with Clwb Chellan. You know, when are we going to get that opportunity again?
Yeah. And I've always told myself from a very, I wouldn't say young age, but, like, when I started maturing into, like post-teenage years, like, 18, 19, I know I was still a teenager, but you start to become a man then. And I've always told myself, in order to have things that other people don't have, you must do what other people won't do.
Yeah.
And that has always been my sort of mindset. If other people are doing something, if everyone else is, if I
that's what he says. He uses me as an example.
if I am at home
that's what
and
if
other people are going to the pub, I'm not going to the pub. Yeah. If other people are going out to lads' holidays and festivals and stuff like that, I'm not.
Good.
Because I am the guy who's going to be successful when they're not.
Yeah.
And I think
exactly.
that's the mindset you've got to have.
Yeah.
And that to me is very important. I'd like to just say thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed this podcast.
Good one.
And this has been one of the most insightful and value providing podcasts that I've ever been a part of. So
I appreciate that
thank
so
you
much.
for that. But it's honestly been an honour. And if you have anything you would like to say to the audience, if you want to plug anything or shout anyone out, or
start beef with anyone,
or say anything, then the floor is yours for you to do that, Mr. Morris.
All right, guys. Well, first of all, I thank you both for setting this up.
Thank you.
I thank you both for your time as well.
Thank you.
As much as it's my time, it's also yours. And yeah, obviously it's been like a pleasure. I love this setup. Hopefully we can do it again sometime as well.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
But other than that, obviously, if you want to follow me on a consistent basis and you've liked this podcast and you don't already follow me, obviously follow me at AJMorris_ on Instagram. It's where I'm most active. And then equally, if you're wanting to check out the site, you can check it out on a free trial. It's a 7-day free trial.
We'll put them all in the description.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So check out the site. It'll be linked below. And I hope everyone has found it insightful. Maybe learned a little bit more about me. And
well, I certainly have, because I didn't follow you as close as Matthew did, and I've learned it all about you.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we want, right? So appreciate it, guys.
But thank you for your time.
And thank you all, lovely viewers, for making it this far. It's been a class podcast, and thanks again, AJ, for you lot at home. We'll see you in the next one.
Yes.
It's top shot. I was enjoying that.